As he begins this week, President Trump is reeling. After last week ended with a remarkable cave on his demand for a border wall, today House Speaker Nancy Pelosi extended an invitation to the president for his State of the Union speech, announcing the new date as February 5th. His capitulation on the wall may have ended the 5-week government shutdown, but it leaves the president weakened and bracing for even more challenges ahead. A bipartisan group of lawmakers will begin meeting on Wednesday to try to hash out an agreement on border security, including the wall, but the president has already thrown cold water on those negotiations. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, the president was asked about the chances of a deal in the next 3 weeks. He said, quote, "I personally think it's less than 50-50. Wow. Well, the president also wouldn't rule out another shutdown, calling it, quote, certainly an option. When a pair of interviews yesterday, acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney backed up the president's threat.
Is the president really prepared to shut down the government again in 3 weeks?
Yeah, I think he actually is. Keep in mind, he's willing to do whatever it takes to secure the border. But at the end of the day, the president's commitment is to defend the nation, and he'll do it either with or without Congress. I'm
joined now by Yamiche Alcindor, White House correspondent for PBS NewsHour, former Democratic Congressman Steve Israel of New York, and former chairman of the Republican National Committee, Michael Steele. Yamiche, right down the middle, is this president weaker this week than he was last week, starting last week?
Well, I think if you ask the president's opponents and if you ask independents, I think they see the president as weaker because he really ended the shutdown on Nancy Pelosi's terms. However, the White House is sticking to this idea that the president hasn't given up ground here, that he's only said that after 35 days of holding up the government, that he'll have this committee work on wall funding and that he will in some way get the money for his wall. But it's no doubt, it's really very clear that the president is obviously frustrated with the situation that he's in. He's even lashing out at Fox News, his favorite network, for the coverage that they had on him ending the shutdown on Nancy Pelosi's terms.
Well, he's blaming everybody. He's like Groucho Marx, Steve. You know, he's out there blaming everybody. I'll fight anybody in the house for $1. He's after Ann Coulter now. He says she's being hostile. I mean, come on, this is pathetic. He's the president of the United States. He's worried about somebody who writes a book every 4 years.
When you're going to war with Ann Coulter, you're not having a good time in politics.
It's a skirmish off to the right.
He thinks that this is a winning argument, that the wall is a winning argument. That fundamentally, he believes it's a win. It's a loss. And here's the empirical evidence. We just had a midterm election. He tried to litigate the wall in those midterm districts. He lost Republican members of Congress. He litigated the wall, made a referendum. They flipped to Democrats. This is not a winning argument for Donald Trump. He just hasn't figured it out yet.
Michael, read this guy because I think he looks weaker. I compared him to Sonny Liston once, the guy that couldn't be beaten until he couldn't win. There was no gradual decline. It went from can't lose to can't win.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I think he's in this space and he's buffeted by guys like Mulvaney in the House telling him, all right, let's do this, let's stick to it. They go out and they continue to beat that drum. What I take away from this is, again, the idea that we're going to have another shutdown in 3 weeks. This president is prepared to take ownership of that. He's prepared to say, yes, I own this shutdown too, because to Steve's point, this fight over the wall is the one corner he cannot figure out how to get out of, short of an emergency. And so I think that either he's going to shut down the government or he's going to do the emergency piece will be the next reaction in this debate.
Well, as I mentioned, the president's taken some heat from his base, of course, over the wall capitulation. Hard right commentator Ann Coulter and Fox Business host Lou Dobbs both blasted the move.
Crazy that I expect a president to keep the promise he made every day for 18 months.
Right.
No, it's not just, it's the base. That's what happened. The base is what has rebelled here, and they can take me as a stand-in for the base, but that's all I am, a member of the base.
But you've got to call it as it is. This president said it was going to be conditional border security, building that wall, and he just reversed himself. That's a victory for Nancy Pelosi. It will be perceived as such on every television monitor and screen in the country.
And that's reality, of course, every television screen in the country, Lou. Anyway, Coulter was following up on her tweet that Trump was, quote, the biggest wimp ever to serve as president of the United States. In his interview with the Wall Street Journal, Trump said of Coulter, quote, I hear she's become very hostile. Maybe I didn't return her phone call. This is so snippy. You know what it reminds me of? Faust. Faust made his deal with the devil, and this is the devil.
This is exactly
this is
right.
the devil.
This is right. And this is the fundamental problem. This is a guy, he sits in his recliner, he watches these people, he listens to these people. He believes that they reflect the sentiment of the electorate. In fact, if you take a look at an NBC poll that just came out last weekend, The wall, unpopular with the American people. Donald Trump, underwater now, way more underwater than he ever was.
Yeah.
So he takes a look at this little slice of extremism and believes it represents a broader psychology in the electorate. He's misreading the electorate.
Why does he just take the $25 billion the Democrats offer him now and then? Everyone's probably given an incredible offer and say, we got our first down payment. We'll get the rest of it in the second term. I mean, sometimes you have to finesse these things.
It was there on the table, but now he's at a point where the opposition is not going to put that offer back on the table. Look, they're not going to give him 5.7. There's no way in heck they're going to give him $25 billion.
Well, they were talking. How about Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, saying, we'll have it next Tuesday. She's dictating terms. It's so clear she's calling the shots.
Goes to my central point about this relationship between these two individuals. Donald Trump has yet to figure out what to do with Nancy. He has a Nancy problem, and he doesn't know how to deal with it. And she knows it, and every day she turns the screw just a little bit tighter on him. And today's letter was a good example of that.
And we would have had a different outcome to this shutdown had Nancy Pelosi not won the speakership. Can you imagine what would have happened had she not prevailed?
All I know is Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, knows how to deal with friends and enemies. Ask Kathleen Rice.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.